If you want to understand why money feels tighter every year, why prices rise faster than wages, and why governments seem trapped in endless debt, you have to look beyond daily headlines and economic jargon. You have to understand the system itself. Not how it is explained, but how it actually works. Because the modern world is not built on productivity alone, it is built on money creation. And no country in history has mastered that power more completely than the United States. For most of human history, money was limited by nature. Gold had to be mined, silver had to be refined, land had to be conquered or cultivated, wealth was slow, heavy, and difficult to move. Empires rose and fell based on how well they controlled real resources. Rome debased its coins only when it ran out of silver. Spain flooded Europe with New World gold until prices collapsed. Britain ruled global trade through ships, coal, and industry. Every empire was constrained by something physical. The United States changed that rule. It did not begin as a grand plan. It began as an emergency. In the final years of the Second World War, the global economy was shattered. Europe was bankrupt. Asia was devastated. Entire currencies had collapsed under the weight of war spending. But the United States stood apart. Its cities were intact. Its factories were running at full capacity. Most importantly, it held the majority of the world's gold. That imbalance of power created an opportunity no nation had ever possessed. In 1944, representatives from 44 countries gathered at Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. Officially, the goal was cooperation and stability. Unofficially, the outcome was predetermined. The world needed a monetary anchor, and only one country was in a position to provide it. The United States proposed a system where all major currencies would be pegged to the dollar, and the dollar itself would be convertible into gold at a fixed rate, $35 for 1 ounce of gold. It sounded disciplined, it sounded permanent, and for a brief moment in history, it worked. But this system contained a fatal contradiction. The world needed dollars to grow, trade, and rebuild, yet the supply of gold did not grow at the same pace. The more successful the global economy became, the more pressure it placed on the dollar's gold backing. The United States was forced into a quiet choice: restrict global growth to protect gold reserves, or expand the supply of dollars and hope no one noticed the imbalance. America chose to expand. Throughout the 1950s and 60s, dollars flowed outward. They financed European reconstruction, they lubricated global trade, they became the currency of international contracts. And slowly, almost invisibly, the system drifted away from its foundation. There were more dollars in circulation than gold in Fort Knox could ever redeem. The system survived only because no one demanded the gold all at once, until someone did. In the mid-1960s, French President Charles de Gaulle openly challenged the arrangement. He argued that the United States was enjoying an unfair advantage by printing currency that other nations were forced to hold. He demanded gold instead of paper, and he was not alone. Other governments followed. Gold began leaving the United States at a pace that alarmed Washington. The promise at the heart of Bretton Woods was becoming impossible to keep. By 1971, the situation was no longer manageable. If the United States honored its commitments, it would lose its gold reserves entirely. If it broke the commitment, it would shatter the global monetary order. On August 15th of that year, President Richard Nixon made the decision. In a short television address, he announced the suspension of gold convertibility. The word temporary was used. It never became permanent again. That moment quietly ended 5,000 years of monetary history. For the first time, the world's reserve currency was backed by nothing tangible, no metal, no commodity, only faith in the issuing government. The dollar became pure abstraction, and the consequences of that shift would shape every decade that followed. The 1970s were chaotic. Inflation surged, oil prices exploded, confidence wavered, yet instead of collapsing, the dollar adapted. The United States understood that money needed an anchor. If gold was gone, something else had to replace it, something every nation needed, regardless of ideology or borders: oil. In the mid-1970s, the United States reached a quiet agreement with Saudi Arabia. Oil would be priced exclusively in US dollars. In exchange, the United States would guarantee the security of the Saudi state. The deal spread across OPEC. From that point forward, any country that wanted energy had to obtain dollars first. This was not just trade policy. It was monetary engineering on a global scale. The petrodollar system solved America's biggest problem. It created permanent, global demand for its currency. Even if the United States ran deficits, printed money, or accumulated debt, the world needed dollars to function. The more global trade expanded, the stronger the system became. The dollar was no longer just money, it was infrastructure. This is when the true power of money printing emerged. Other nations could not print freely. Inflation punished them immediately. Capital fled. Currencies collapsed. But the United States was different. When it printed, those dollars spread outward into global markets, central bank reserves, and trade flows. The cost of printing was shared by the entire world. This allowed America to finance wars, welfare states, and financial rescues without immediate consequence. For decades, it appeared almost magical. Every crisis reinforced the system. When markets crashed, investors ran toward U.S. treasuries. When geopolitical tensions rose, capital flowed into dollars. When other currencies weakened, the dollar strengthened by comparison. This feedback loop created the illusion of permanence. Then came 2008. The global financial system froze, banks collapsed, credit vanished, and once again, the United States turned to the printing press. Trillions of dollars were created to stabilize markets. Quantitative easing became normalized, interest rates were pushed to zero. The world accepted it because it had no alternative. The dollar was too deeply embedded to replace. But 2008 was only a rehearsal. In 2020, the printing reached a scale never before attempted. Entire economies were shut down by government decree. To prevent collapse, money was created faster than at any point in history. Stimulus checks, corporate bailouts, emergency lending. The distinction between fiscal policy and monetary policy blurred into irrelevance. The printing press became the system itself. For a moment, it worked. Markets recovered, asset prices soared. But beneath the surface, something fundamental broke. Inflation returned, debt exploded, the cost of living surged, and trust began to erode. At the same time, the geopolitical landscape shifted. China reduced its exposure to U.S. debt. Russia abandoned the dollar system entirely after sanctions froze its reserves. BRICS nations discussed alternatives. Even long-standing allies began questioning the risks of dollar dependence. For the first time in decades, the idea of a post-dollar world entered serious conversation. This does not mean the dollar will disappear tomorrow. Monetary systems decay slowly. They persist long after their foundations weaken. But history is clear about one thing. No reserve currency lasts forever. Not the Roman denarius, not the Spanish real, not the British pound. Each empire believed its system was different. Each was proven wrong. The United States still holds extraordinary power. But power built on money creation has limits. You can print currency, but you cannot print productivity. You cannot print trust. You cannot print stability. When confidence weakens, the system relies on force, regulation, and narrative to survive. We are now living in the transition phase. The system still functions, but it is strained. Inflation is no longer temporary. Debt servicing costs are rising faster than growth. Political incentives favor more printing, not less. Every solution offered today borrows from the future. This is how monetary eras end, not with a single collapse, but with gradual normalization of dysfunction. People adapt, standards fall, expectations shrink. And one day, the old system is simply gone, replaced by something new that feels inevitable in hindsight. The story of how the United States became the world's biggest money printer is not about villains or conspiracies. It is about incentives. It is about power. And it is about the quiet, irreversible consequences of choosing convenience over discipline. The next monetary system is already forming, slowly, imperfectly, unevenly. Those who understand history will recognize the signs early. Those who don't will experience the change as shock. History does not repeat itself exactly, but it rhymes with mathematical precision, and the math is beginning to speak. History has the answers. I'll show you where to look.